Welcome to the Mind Vault. If you've ever wondered why you do what you do, this channel is for you. We unlock the psychology behind your patterns, habits, and thoughts.
Have you ever had that feeling, that nagging sense that you're kind of stuck, that you're living a life that's way below what you're actually capable of? It's a really common experience, this feeling of being bogged down in mediocrity, even when you know deep down you have the capacity for so much more. So let's try to unpack that.
And that brings us to the big question, right? Why is this feeling so common? Why do so many of us find ourselves on a path that just feels, limiting, unfulfilling, and sometimes it can even make us feel sick?
So a great place to start is with the psychiatrist M. Scott Peck. He said the very first step toward any real growth is just accepting one simple, powerful fact. Life is difficult. Now, that's not supposed to be a downer. Actually, Peck argues it's the most freeing thing you can possibly realize. It's the real entry point to a meaningful life.
Okay, so once we accept that life's gonna be tough, we're basically at a fork in the road. We can choose between two paths. There's the common path, right? The one most people take. It's all about avoiding difficulty, seeking comfort. But the thing is, it leads to stagnation, to what Peck called neuroses. And then there's the road less traveled. This path is all about confronting problems head on. It means accepting struggle, and it's through that struggle that we actually find growth and real, genuine meaning. So let's take a closer look at that first path, the easy one. Because here's the paradox. Our natural instinct to avoid pain doesn't actually lead to peace. It actually creates a much deeper, more persistent kind of suffering.
Peck had a name for this. He called it neurotic suffering. It's that anxiety, that depression, that feeling of emptiness that just rushes in to fill the space we create when we dodge our real-life problems. So by trying to avoid the necessary pain of growth, we accidentally trade it for this unnecessary, chronic pain of a life that's only half-lived.
The famous psychologist Carl Jung saw this exact thing happening with his patients all the time. He pointed out that when you push away difficult thoughts, you create what he called a psychic vacuum. And as we know, nature can't stand a vacuum. So that empty space, it just gets filled up with this sort of free-floating anxiety. By trying to avoid one specific problem, we end up creating a chronic one that follows us everywhere.
And this whole avoidance thing, it creates this really predictable downward spiral. It starts simple. You evade a problem. Then you use your defense mechanisms, denial, pushing it down, to pretend it's not there. But the problem doesn't vanish. It just festers. And that's when those neurotic symptoms, the anxiety, the depression, start to show up. And the end result, you just stop growing. You're completely stuck. But this is where things can take a massive turn. We can actually choose to reframe our whole relationship with hardship. What if suffering isn't something to run from? What if it's actually life's greatest teacher?
This is Peck's central and kind of radical idea. Problems aren't obstacles on our path. They are the path. The challenges we face, those are the very things that make us brave, that forge our wisdom. Without the legitimate suffering that comes from facing things head-on, real growth just isn't possible.
And this isn't some new age idea, right? Great thinkers have understood this forever. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, he famously said, "What doesn't kill me makes me stronger." He knew that overcoming resistance is how you increase your own power, your own vitality. I mean, just look at the writer Fyodor Dostoevsky. After being subjected to a mock execution and spending years in a brutal Siberian prison, he looked back and said that the immense suffering had totally transformed him. In that solitude, he reevaluated his entire life and came out with this new, unbreakable resolve. He was literally reborn, right there in the fire of his own hardship. This brings us to a really counterintuitive way of looking at depression. Both Peck and Jung suggested that it isn't always a sickness. A lot of the time, it's actually a healthy signal from our psyche telling us that our current way of life is just wrong. It's like our soul is slamming on the brakes, saying, "Stop. This is a dead end. It's time for a total overhaul." So, if we choose this road less traveled, how do we actually do it? This is where we shift from the why to the how. It's about the practical, gutsy work of the journey itself. So the journey begins by looking inward. Carl Jung said the first step is to confront the shadow, all those parts of ourselves that we deny or try to hide. But here's the crucial part. The shadow isn't just your flaws or your weaknesses. It also holds your buried strengths, your creativity, your healthy gut instincts. So facing it is the first real act of courage.
This whole journey, it's an active process. It requires real tools. It demands a kind of ruthless honesty to see our own shadow and to stop lying to ourselves. And maybe one of the most important tools is learning to give our difficult moods a hearing, to actually listen to what our depression might be trying to tell us without letting it completely swallow us whole. It's about learning to sit with the darkness, trusting that it has something to teach.
Look at someone like Leo Tolstoy. After he had all the fame and success in the world, he just sank into this profound depression, feeling like his life was totally meaningless. He said he felt an invincible force pushing him to just end it, but he didn't. He persevered. He listened to that despair and he emerged from that darkness, a completely reborn man with a whole new purpose in life. So what's the whole point of all this hard work? What's the reward at the end of the road less traveled? Well, it's something way, way more valuable than just being comfortable. And this brings us to a super important distinction. The common path, the easy one, it's shooting for happiness. But happiness can be fleeting, right? It depends on your circumstances. The road less traveled, though, it offers a totally different prize, meaning. And meaning is something else entirely. It's an enduring sense of purpose that you forge yourself through your struggles. It's something that no one can take away from you.
And here we are, full circle. M. Scott Peck just lays it out so clearly. Meaning isn't something you find by dodging problems. Meaning is created in the process of meeting and solving them. The very act of engaging with life's difficulties is what gives your life its weight, its significance.
You know, choosing this path is kind of an act of rebellion. The philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson told us to be nonconformists, and in a world that is constantly screaming at us to seek comfort, to avoid pain, to distract ourselves, choosing to face your suffering and build meaning from it is maybe the ultimate act of nonconformity. And the rewards for being that nonconformist? They're huge. You don't just solve your problems, you're actually transformed by them. You forge courage out of your fear. You create wisdom from your pain. You move toward becoming a whole person. And at the end of the day, you build a life of unshakable meaning. So we end with a question that really turns all of this into a personal choice. Life is going to throw problems at you. That's the one great truth. So if those very problems are the raw material you need to build your own courage and wisdom, then which problem that's...
This opened your eyes. Imagine what else is hiding in your mind. Don't forget to subscribe for weekly episodes that decode your brain, one pattern at a time. And if something clicked today, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, stay curious.